Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's open forum. We have a very special guest today. We're going to talk about some Title 101 type stuff. So with no further ado, Brooke Landau, owner of Apex Title Services. She specializes in creating relationships with realtors, and she's the owner, and we're really excited to have her here. Brooke, thank you for joining us. Tell us everything you know. You're on mute, though. Little microphone in the left, bottom left.
There we go. I promise I saw it. It always happens to me. It's no fail. But Brian and I were talking, and we kind of went over a few things. We were saying, agents really have questions, and title, so often we just do our job, keep our heads down, and we don't really show what goes on behind the veil. So I put something together for you guys that I've kind of worked on, and some of the questions that you might have had over the years, or some of you might be new to the industry. But yeah, can you see my screen? Can everyone see my screen? Is that a yes?
Yes, but it's not. There you go. Yes, we can see it.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. So I put together a class, just Title Escrow 101. A lot of people don't realize all the jobs and all the things that go into title, and we're oftentimes the middleman. So a couple things that we're going to learn today is explaining title insurance, what it is, what it protects, navigating the norms, kind of like EMD, a quick little touch on disputes. No one wants those, but I've kind of found over the years that no one really knows what to do when you get there. So I'm going to touch on that. Just some basic timelines, how to read a commitment, what the different breakdowns of a commitment might be. A lot of agents, when we pass off that commitment, as soon as that search gets back, no one really knows what that information entails, how we get that information. And most importantly, curative items, and also timelines. I want you guys to know what to expect, how to pass that along to your clients. A lot of times we get people wanting to move up closings, and I am always more than happy to move up a closing, but there's sometimes reasons why we can't. And I always say to my team, I never want to be the reason you guys can't move up a closing. So I'm going to go over a few things there. Municipal lien searches, estoppel surveys, that's our three pieces that we really work off of next to the title commitment. And then also preparing customers for funding, recording disbursements, and what to expect after the fact. And then just setting expectations. So I thought, the one piece of title, again, we're the middleman. So we're the central party to bring together the buyer, the seller, the realtors. We're the ones dispersing funds. We're the ones oftentimes finding those curative items, those issues on title that we have to clear. And then the underwriter, which a lot of you guys don't know about, we actually have a regulator that's our big boss. And that's what the underwriter actually is. And they're the ones that provide the policy. Think kind of like, a brokerage and a realtor. It's kind of like that in a sense. And then, of course, the lenders. If it's not a cash deal, we have to abide by the lenders and wait on their timelines. So part A, curative and what title performs. So this is something that a lot of people don't realize. So number one,
hey, Brooke, sorry to interrupt, but you have an error message on your screen that we're all seeing, and we can't see this thing, the audience window. There you go.
Oh, weird. I didn't even see it on my side. Okay, perfect. You can see it now. Let's see. Okay.
Perfect.
All right, let me put that up. Okay. So firstly, when we receive that contract, of course, we, get everything processed. We get the buy side information. We want to quickly get out that escrow or EMD, and that's one piece of title. So we have our curative side, and we also have our financial side. But first, I want to touch on curative. So the first thing we do is we order that title search. One thing that kind of sets Apex apart, I do allow for title search and examination, a full examination to be done at the time of listing. That's something a lot of title companies don't do. So the reason why that's important is because it takes 3 to 5 days sometimes, and it really depends on how tricky that transaction might be. And what this is, the underwriter actually provides us with this information. So oftentimes, they have to go through all public records, anything that might be brought forth, anything unresolved. They also have to look at true ownership, any liens or judgments, past mortgages. And really this is performed by what's called an examiner. And so what we do, we send in our order, and that actually goes to the underwriter, who then performs that. Then we receive it back. And what they're actually telling us is this is what's on the property. And that brings us to our second piece, which is our title commitment. So you guys always see a title commitment. Everyone always gets that about 5 days in, 3 to 5 days in, and they'll say, here's your title commitment. This is what's going to tell you what's on the property. And so the findings from that title search and examination, that allows for the underwriter to produce what's called a commitment. And think of this as almost like pre-policy. Like, these are the items that have to be met in order to retrieve that policy or get that policy on that property. So this is going to tell us things like requirements. So a lot of times you're like, oh, I have this requirements, and those are the ones that, sometimes we have really tricky ones, sometimes we have really easy ones, and I'll go over a title commitment, what that might look like on your end. And then from there, we actually get what's called a policy. Now, that's not done until the very end, after everything's said and done. So title's really funny, that 30-day or so, sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes 45 days, but that 30-day or so window, that's what we're gathering. It's all that evidence, all those curative items in order to meet what's required on that title commitment. And then that's what brings us to a policy. And so the policy, a lot of people don't realize this, title insurance has 2 different policies. We have our owner's policy, and we also have our loan policy. So the owner's policy, that's what your client's paying for. That's what protects them and their ownership interest. And as far as the loan policy, that's what protects the actual lender. So you don't ever see those actually on cash transactions. So the loan policy, that actually protects the lender's interest, their loan amount. And that's when you start hearing things like lender needing to be first lien. That's why we have so many items that have to be paid off, or items that need to be met.
I have a question, Brooke.
Yes.
What is the advantage of doing the search at listing?
So one thing that, a lot of people wait until they're 3 to 5 days into those transactions. And when you're that far into a transaction, a lot of times things can rise, like things can come up, you can have issues. Maybe there's a curative item where title has to perform a deed. Maybe, I've seen them where 1970, someone passed along a deed and it wasn't notarized properly, or maybe it's missing in public records. So if you perform that title search early, and really there's 2 things. One, it's going to give you an advantage to get that listing, because you're going to already know those problems walking in. You're going to say, okay, well, I spotted this. We can fix it. Don't worry. I have the best team, and we can fix that right up front. But it also cuts down, if you ever get, let's say, 10 days into the deal, maybe you start seeing it get shaky, or maybe some of the other items, the contingencies are met, and you want to move that up. If these things are done early and done in a timely manner, we can absolutely move these items up and have them met earlier. So I always suggest, if you're a listing agent, reach out to your title rep, reach out to me. I'm always going to get you that rushed title search, so you have an advantage when you walk in. But that's a really good question.
So follow up, why do why don't all title companies do that? That costs you guys money to do that, right? Money and time.
Yes. So I have a different belief than most, and maybe that's why I'm the fastest growing title company right now. But I have a belief that if we provide really, really good service, we're going to have a 90% turnaround, meaning if these transactions, God forbid, fall through, then I'm still going to get this, on the next transaction and next buyer. So if I'm doing right by my listing agents, I'm okay with paying up front, and then we just charge the client when it comes time to close, and we allow for an update. And you can update these as many times as you want. You can update the buyer. So a lot of title companies don't do this. But again, to me, I pour into my agents. I make sure you guys, look good and are built for success. So we do that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, a very good question. So next we have our title commitment breakdown. A lot of people, how many people actually know how to read a title commitment? No one, right? I always say that we're the redheaded stepchild of real estate. No one knows what we do. We just kind of bring everything together. And title commitment is one of those things that, no one understands what's in it. So I'm going to give you a little breakdown. First, we have the first portion is what's called the Schedule A. So when you receive that, you're going to see some, and I'll give you an example. I'll show you what it kind of looks like. But you're going to see the underwriter information, some of the other items. But when you get to the page Schedule A, that's going to tell you a little bit more about your policy. That's going to give you a breakdown of what's being insured. So that's going to be the amount, the sales price or loan amount. And it's also going to give you like your legal description. So if you ever need to find your legal description for whatever reason, you can always search back. But this is just secondary to what's most important, which is that Schedule B1. So Schedule B1, that page is going to tell you everything you need to meet in order to get that deal closed and have those curative items met. So this is where you find some of those tricky items. This is what takes, when your title agent says, okay, well, this one's a little bit tricky, or this one we have to satisfy this, or this, that is where that's found. And I'll kind of go over one here in a second. And every item that is collected in that examination, that's where you're going to find it. And then lastly are exceptions. So a lot of times people hear things like survey exceptions, different things like that. What they're saying is that that's where you're going to find that. Let me pull this up for you. I had a link on here for you. Is it still on the other page? Let me see. Here we go. Okay. So I know this is probably hard to see, but this is what a title commitment looks like. Our underwriter is Fidelity. So we have several different underwriters, and there's a reason we do that, because when something comes up on, and this is really important for you guys to know, if you are working with a title company that has one or two underwriters, it's okay, it's not a bad thing. But if something comes up, we do have the ability in title to say, I disagree with you, to that underwriter, and pull it to another underwriter and actually perform a second search and bring all this evidence that we found here and say, they're not going to cover this, let's go to the next. And so we actually have 4 different underwriters right now. But that's how you know what underwriter is closing this policy, is what's going to be on the commitment. So if you go down here, this is where your Schedule A is found. This is where it's proposed insurance amount. This is going to tell you a little bit about how title is held. But this is just your basic information, and that will have your legal description. But here's what's most important. So this is that Schedule B. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, this is an easy one. A lot of times we have pages and pages. So this is going to be an easy one. Here's your Schedule B Part 1. This is your requirements. So if you kind of look here, this is going to tell you proposed insured. It's going to tell you premiums, fees, policies, all that is secondary to this. So this is going to tell you exactly what's needed. So we're going to have an authorized and executed deed by husband and wife and mirror that revocable trust that was dated in 2007. So that in order for us to pass along clear title or marketable title, we're going to have a deed that reflects these people signing. So that's what that tells you. And then it's going to tell you anything like Orange County taxes, that needs to be met, proof of payment of water, sewage, waste, gas, anything like that. And this one's actually really easy. This one, sometimes we get these and they're pages long. So, and then also this is going to tell you what mortgages they have. So if you look down here, it's going to say recorded in public records, release of satisfaction of mortgage with SunTrust. So that's where you'll find anything that's funky. And if you ever have questions, reach out to your title rep and they'll kind of go through it. And then these are your exceptions. So these are always on every transaction. It's going to say, you know, this is like your survey exceptions, any encroachment, encumbrance, violation, variation, anything like that. But most important is that middle page there. I'm going to go back. Okay. Okay, so items that we have to order. So as the middleman, so this is one thing, this will, if you understand this part of it, this will make you successful at trying to move up a transaction. I mean, for one, I always tell my girls, I never want to be the reason you guys cannot close early. So again, back to like Ryan had asked, why do I order things up front? This is exactly why Apex Title will always order at any title search up front. And then as soon as we get that transaction in, we get a municipal lien search order, which a lot of times people wait about 5 days. We also get a Stopples order, which is from the HOA, if that applies, of course. And then we'll even go as far as once that's back, we'll order those surveys as quickly as possible. We, you know, again, I will eat that cost if I have to. A lot of times these deals come right back around. A lot of people don't realize on surveys, even if one is already performed and the deal falls through, you can still use that same survey. We just have to reach out to the surveyor to transfer the invoice to the new buyer and transfer who that survey is for. So again, you want to make sure you have a title company that you can lean on when you do have those moments where it's like, no, I already have all this ordered. This is where we want to close because this is going to make sure that all that information is put together for you nicely. But this is what we do. We also look, like I was saying, at Schedule B. That's what's going to tell us if probate's needed. And probate can be done in that time frame as long as you have a good title agent to tell you right up front. And this is, again, what I always say. If you have a deal going into, you hear someone's deceased, you know, there's trust issues, there's probate issues. You want to get that ordered as quickly as possible so title can assist in what's needed to get it closed. So probate can take anywhere from 2 weeks to months. It just really depends on how far along in the process they are. Searches, we have, again, a couple of searches. We have our title search, and I'm going to go into a little bit more on municipal lien searches. Those come from the county, and I'll have a breakdown here in a second on what that actually entails. Estoppels, we of course, HOA, COA, those can take 5 to 7 days. And then surveys, of course, 3 to 5 days if you have a really good relationship with a surveyor, which we have several. And then payoff. So a lot of people don't realize payoffs can really affect, if you have one that might have a private lender, we've had them where they take weeks and weeks and weeks. So you really need a good title company that's going to order that right away and make sure, you know, one thing I always tell my girls, we order up front, we pad interest, per day interest, per diem. So even if we're ordering a little bit too soon, it's really beneficial to you guys, because sometimes with those private lenders, they can take forever. But most of the time with normal lenders, we can get it within a day or two. And then of course, solar. No one likes solar. So it depends what company, but when you see things like Sonova, or right now we're dealing with a lot of closed down solar companies, sometimes that can be really, really tricky. So again, you want to stick with the title company that's going to order all of this up front. So next, I know we always hear after the title commitment, we always hear what's a municipal lien search, or we hear that. I had one yesterday when they were like, well, we want to close today. Well, the municipal lien search hasn't come back. We only had the deal for about 7 days. So that's something that comes from the county. And what that's going to tell you, anything off record, so anything that is not recorded, that's what's going to be in your municipal lien search. So items like open or expired permits, which by the way, I try not to open that can of worms unless you guys ask. I will close deals if there are open permits, but it's up to you, because some investors want those closed. But you can get that ordered on your municipal lien search. The biggest thing is code violations. So code violations are going to be, you know, outside of an HOA, if the grass is, you know, grown up and maybe there's cars out front, like we work a lot of investor deals, we see those. So that's going to tell you any of those code violations that the county or the city might have. Open utilities, fees. A lot of people don't realize that we can close with open utilities if it is an investor property. So utilities oftentimes follows the Social Security. So you're working with a title company that's, you know, demanding some of that, those items to be paid. Make sure you know that. You can always call me, even if it's a different transaction, because I know I'll get your next one. But you can always call me and ask, does my client really have to pay this? So that's what you're going to find, and it's going to differentiate whether those items are still open or whether they need to be paid off. But again, these are unrecorded items. That's the difference. Your title search and title commitment, that is based on recorded items. This is based on unrecorded. So that's a really good way to remember that. This information, again, it can take long depending on the county. Some of the counties like Polk, you know, those counties are a little bit slower. They're not always online. So those can take sometimes even 3 or 4 weeks. We can always push as a rush, but Orange County tends to be pretty good. We can get these back in about 2 weeks.
Brooke, you got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Anne, go ahead.
Yes. Is it true that I had one closing on the contract? I did not say anything about open permit or anything like that. So the closings is closed and there's open permit. When I asked the title said because I did not put anything in the contract says no open permit. So that's not their job to search for that. Is it true?
Yeah, you know, so that's a tricky item. It's one of those, so, you know, title is very much a difference in theory, right? If you understand what you're selling as a title agent, you know the right questions to ask. So what I do to my clients, if I'm tight with my clients, I say, hey, do you want me to do a permit search? Once we ask that, we have to close those out, right? Like, you know, once we open that can of worms, we can't put it back. But no, a lot of times, really the question that should be asked, which we do on every transaction, is do we want a permit search? So yeah, they can close it without those items being taken care of. And a lot of places do. It's
So
no
we-
longer required. Yeah.
So we have to put that in every contract that is need to be, if I'm represent the buyer, is that what
If
you're
you're-
saying?
I would suggest that, or when you are sending in your information, you need to put, I do want a permit search on this. And, it really depends on your clients. Investors, they always want permit searches. They want to know if they're going to have to redo a roof. There's different items. But some people, they just don't want to go there. Maybe there's work that's been done. They just love the house as is. So you have to gauge that with your client. But yes, you do want to communicate that if that's something you're looking for.
Thank you. There's a lesson for me.
Yeah. Sometimes that's how we learn those lessons, right? When you have a mistake or, those tough lessons. I can think of a few in my 20 years of doing this.
Yes, sir. Malvis, do you have a question?
Yes, good morning. Stupid question, but does lien searches, do they have an expiration date like stop all letters do? And second question, are there any wordings or red flags that we as agents, because we're not the experts, need to be looking out for when we get those ALTA commitment, or I'm sorry, the commitment from the agents, from the title agents? Any red flags or anything that should be outstanding that we should be looking for or looking out for?
Yeah, so those are two really good questions. First, I'll start with expiration date on municipal lien search. It really depends on the county. Municipal lien searches, typically, if something comes up on it, it's not going to be closed out unless it's title, unless the title company has done so. We can use them for 30 and sometimes 60 days, and it really depends on what what the actual issue is. Because, it will suggest, do we need to reach out to the county for a payoff, things like that. So if a payoff's involved, a lot of times there's a per day or per diem rate that's being charged if it's something not closed out. So again, your title company should be able to look at something and say, would this still be good in 30 or 60 days? And so again, this is one of the costs that I oftentimes do have to eat, because just like you asked, an update doesn't work the same as like a title commitment update. Title commitment update, we can do those over and over and over, not a big deal. Because those items are rarely going to change. Maybe a lien might be added or something like that, but a lot of times you guys know when that's going to happen and you're trying to sell it quicker. But yeah, so that would be answer number one. Answer number two, as far as red flags, that's what that schedule be. I want you guys to really pay attention. And if next transaction you have, even if it's buy side and you need me to kind of work through it with you or walk you through it before you talk to your clients, I'm happy to be that resource. I know Ryan always talks about having your team around you to be successful. Count me in if you really need a little assistance there. But what you want to look out for are items like really payoffs. There's oftentimes on title, especially when you see someone with like, let's say John Doe or John Smith, you're going to see so many items in that section. And that would be the red flag, is to make sure whether or not that is actually your client. That would be my suggestion, because a lot of times we can get around things with a simple name, like a affidavit, continuous marriage affidavit, name affidavit, different items like that can be attached to the wrong name. So we have, especially if it's a common name. Another item would be different payoffs. Make sure that's where I've seen one time where that's where someone found out that fraud was done and someone took out a mortgage, and you had to do an insurance claim and all that. So I've seen some crazy ones over the years, but I would say, as far as things to look for, number one, is that the correct person? And number two, that's going to tell you those big ticket items like probate, the things that are going to extend that closing transaction date and that time period. Okay. But again, always call me. Even if it's someone else, I've worked with all the underwriters. I can easily read through it with you and tell you what to expect before you walk back in or jump back on that call with your seller. Okay. Any other questions on that one?
That one over there? Okay.
Okay.
Pablo, you have
Was
a question?
yours? I want to make.
What was that?
I'm sorry.
All right, I got him.
Okay. It's like, is that a question? Okay. Next, that we order, it's an estoppel. And I know you guys always hear this. We can close, but we're just waiting on that estoppel. I mean, that's what everyone always waits on, right? And so estoppels, they're a little bit more expensive than those municipal lien searches. So as you go through this, you'll see where a title company kind of falls off ordering those until they know those contingencies are met. To me, complicates things. Again, estoppels, we can update. A lot of times, the only update is going to be like a proof of payment or something like that. We turn it back in, we receive it back. And I hate ordering rushes because your title company is no longer allowed to charge that rush fee, by the way. So if they're waiting to the last second, they need a 2-day turnaround. There's oftentimes like a $200 fee added to your seller, and they are not supposed to be, charging that, passing that along, because title should be ordering this upfront. And so what an estoppel is going to tell you, this is their account status with the HOA. So this will tell you what's owed, what's needed for the new owner as well. So any transfer fees, any application fees, maybe special assessments. This is really
Hi, how are
big.
you? Hello.
Well,
You got him? Okay. So yeah, any special assessment, any sort of fees like that. And again, are they delinquent? Is there some sort of, late fee, whatever items need to be covered? This is also one thing that can have multiple on one, or even a second estoppel charge. It depends whether or not there's one or two HOAs. And again, this is going to be shown on your commitment, how many HOAs. A lot of times you can get here in Orlando with all of the golf communities, things like that, especially Reunion, you're going to see a master association or homeowners association, and then a secondary one. And so sometimes you'll have more than one estoppel fee, but a lot of times it's all put into one if we use a vendor. So these items should not be taking longer than 5 to 7 days, but sometimes you'll have those, really old subdivisions where maybe, the grandma is still working on, balancing the HOA and all the members of the HOA with a pencil. And so those can take a little bit longer, where we've seen like 2 or 3 weeks, but oftentimes it's a 5 to 7 days. Again, we can order that rush if needed. I'll always order a rush, but again, the title company should not be passing that. As of 2017, we are no longer allowed to pass that to the client. And then really, this is just going to tell you everything you need to know about that HOA and how to pass that along to the next to the buyer. Sorry. Any questions there? Okay. So then that is more curative side. That's all, gathering little tiny fees and different bits of information that might be on the property. Next, the second thing that title does, and I always say there's 2 parts to title that is forward facing. There's actually 3, and I'm going to go over that with you guys, but really there's 2 forward facing. So first we have our curative. So that's where we have all the recorded docs, unrecorded items, everything that we put together, so we can say, okay, this is now able to be conveyed to your buyer from your seller. So that is what that owner's policy actually covers, is that right there. Any liens that can be paid off. So think of that. Then you have your escrow side. So a lot of people don't realize, again, we're the middleman. So that's why you'll see Transaction with lenders takes a little bit longer because we are at the mercy of the lender to move forward. So a couple things and just kind of step by step how it works. So first, of course, we receive that contract in. Not only do we do the title search, receive the commitment, we also in that same time frame are getting the escrow earnest money deposit in, or escrow deposit, which of course binds that contract. So this is why it's really important you have a title company with really good process and really good upfront step-by-step communication, because this is where I see a lot of title companies fall flat. That that transaction comes in, they get their greetings out, they say hello, and then they forget, which is so crazy to me, forget to go to the buy side or buyer's agent and receive that buyer information. And then we're stuck 2 days later asking for EMD. Really, it should be the title company asking for those items up front, even if we need to do a quick phone call, because we know how busy you guys are as agents. So yeah, escrow money deposit, your title company should be sending that out securely within a couple hours or less right away of receiving that contract, because a lot of times we have 3 days. Do we have a question? I think so. Now I'm seeing it.
Yeah, Malvis will have.
Malvis?
Yes, I'm sorry. Whenever you're done, I had another question about stopples.
About what? I can answer, that's fine.
Okay, so did I understood correctly? Did you said that title companies are no longer allowed to charge twice for a stopple letter?
Not twice. We're no longer allowed to charge that rush fee.
Okay, so
Yeah.
if a stopple letter has to be ordered twice, they still can charge the sellers twice for it,
Yes.
just not the rush fee.
Yes, because twice just means that there might be 2 or even I've seen 3 HOAs. So that is the responsibility, of owning that property. You do have to be able to see what everything is, but it's that rush fee. So if a title company is waiting, and that's why it happens, if a title company is waiting so that they aren't stuck footing the bill, basically, that's where those rush fees come in. And then they typically just speed it up by 1 or 2 days. So really, if you have a title company that's on top of their contracts, they should be ordered. They don't always have to be right up front, but probably within 5 days of getting that contract. But we order everything up front.
Okay, the expiration for the stopples are usually like 30 days.
I would say 30 days, but again, estoppels are a little bit different than municipal lien searches because it's typically a straightforward, a straightforward billing, and monthly billing or quarterly. It oftentimes doesn't change that much, so it is easier to update, and you can just call for an update, or even receive proof of payment. Some places do accept that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for answering that.
Yeah, of course. So back to our first step, we receive that contract, we have our earnest money deposit, we send out our escrow instructions. One thing that I always see, and still, even with all the fraud, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't mention this. I always see agents say, "Oh, it's okay, send me the escrow instructions and I'll send it to the client." Please don't ever do that. That is where fraud happens. So I just want to do a quick housekeeping note on that. But that right now, one of the biggest frauds are actually hackers that wait inside Gmail accounts and things like that, because the title company is always secure and should always be sending these items securely with a passcode and everything, which we do through Qualia. But it always is a slip up when the agent is saying, "No, this is what it is." And then also another housekeeping, always have people, it takes 1 or 2 minutes just to make a quick call and verify those wire instructions. But right now, that's the most common ways of fraud. So I do have to point that out. So yeah, first is receiving the funds. Next, we get throughout the transaction, we're gathering all that information, all those invoices, estoppels, any liens, any judgments, any payoffs, things like that. Then we're going to get to what's next, which would be the balancing and lender funds and different items like that. One thing you guys don't realize behind the scenes, I'm sure you guys have heard, oh, I want to close, but I haven't heard from the lender. What that is, what they're saying is the lender hasn't gotten through to clear to close to know those final figures. So that's why a lot of times we can do some pre-balancing, pre-CD, meaning we can go back and forth. We can share our figures with the lender. The lender can then turn around and share some, figures with us, based on processing fee, things like that. But we're not going to actually know those closing figures until that buyer is fully approved and out of underwriting. And when I say underwriting, I mean the lender's underwriter, meaning clear to close. And so what that's going to tell the title agent, what that's going to tell everybody is how much they need to be for the loan approval as far as down payment, how much they need as far as, principal and interest, different items like that, impounds, which of course you guys always see impounds. What that is gathering up front for different items like homeowners insurance and taxes. And so that's what that is. When we say lender fund or purchase funds, we are then receiving all that and all those funds to then disperse. So first the money deposit, escrow money deposit, and then we're going to go to lender or buyer funds. So if it's a cash deal, it just goes directly to buyer funds. That's why those tend to close a lot quicker. And then escrow disbursement. So our very last step. So once we get all that in, we share the final figures, we get you guys in for a signing, then we're going to do disbursements. And so this is what is line itemed on those Alta settlement statements or CDs as well. Because there's two, right? You have the Alta settlement statement, and that's title guidelines, and then you have the CD or closing disclosure, and that's your lender. That's TRIG. That's their guidelines. So one is federal and one is title. And in that's where you're going to find every single line and what it is. So you're going to see that initial deposit. You're going to see the purchase price. You're going to see title fees, lender fees, state and county charges, little recording fees. It doesn't matter if it's 10 cents. We have to disclose every single fee and where that item is going. Intangible tax payoffs are going to be on that. Mortgage judgments, liens, any third-party invoices, survey, the survey amount, of course, municipal lien search, whatever's on that, HOA estoppels, transfer or application fees, home warranties, brokerage commissions, and of course, seller proceeds are going to be found at the very end. And that's also brings you to FERPTA and FERPTA holdback. So every single item that you see on those, that's what we as title are collecting and then dispersing. So that's what title is actually doing. Okay, so then next, balancing. I'm sure you guys have always heard, I'm trying to balance with the lender and then I'll get you your fees, right? How many of you guys hear that? So what that is we are going back and forth with the lender to make sure that their items balance on that CD with our items. And so on this, of course, we're strictly talking about loan packages or loan transactions. But yeah, this is where title and lender has to work together. You have to have a title company with really good relationships with those lenders. It's not always your mortgage broker that's forward facing behind the scenes. It's going to be the closing department of the actual bank or lender. And so that's who we're going back and forth with. I always love when I hear the mortgage broker say, no, we have funding approval. And then you go to the closing department. They're like, no one has funding approval. So that's who we're talking about, is behind the scenes. Again, first we have to have clear to close. then we oftentimes are unable to balance match numbers. So we have to go back, start over, sometimes remove seller credits, and that's where you'll see different items like that. And we have to, of course, wait till approval, like I was saying.
Brooke, I have a question.
Sure.
Sometimes all of these initials and lingo can get confusing for people. Why don't you explain the difference between a CD, closing disclosure, settlement statement, an ALTA, a HUD? Tell everybody what the difference in all those is.
You know what? It's so funny. When I was in title for 10 years, probably, and TRID probably even longer than that, but TRID started and everyone was saying the CD. I didn't know what that meant. We were just passing the CD back and forth. So it's a good point for you to bring up. So ALTA is American Land Title Association Settlement Statement. And what that's going to tell you, that's what you guys have to get paid. That's what tells us that we conveyed title. Everyone signed off on all the fees. So that is basically telling you exactly how that transaction was dispersed. Oh, I'm reading that, George. Okay, I can answer that in a second if I can find how to get back to that. Then you have your CD. So CD is strictly with a loan package or lender. That's going to be your closing disclosure. That's something, it has to typically be wet signed a lot of times, along with the mortgage and different items in that package. But yes, the CD is going to be your closing disclosure. That's where you're going to find the buy side. On the front page is going to be principal and interest, your payment. It's going to tell you if, there's an HOA, any of those little broken down items, taxes, that can all be found there. And that's what that is. So you have your ALTA settlement statement, your CD. Next would be HUD. So HUD, it's when you hear someone say, oh, what's the HUD say? That's someone who's been around for a while, because we rarely use these anymore. They're much more difficult to read. So I can tell Ryan's been in it for a long time, just like me, because I always say that too. But your HUD is basically the same thing as your ALTA settlement statement, just changed throughout the years. That one, people find it a little bit more difficult to read, because when you get to the second or third page, it's broken down into quadrants instead of straightforward line by line. And so that's the difference. And what was the other one? Do we have another one?
Oh, I don't know.
I think that was it. Okay.
I get all kinds of questions.
If there is one, we'll get a question on it. But yeah, that's the difference. So really, we're saying the same thing when you hear those things. It's all about the figures and how it's broken down. It's just done differently. One is going to be for federal reasons. One is going to be for title side, state or federal. But really, ALTA is the title agents, what they have to have for audits, basically.
Okay.
And then what was that question?
Would you review
sorry.
the solar info with a defunct local contractor, but not the manufacturers who are still in business, and how it affects title?
Well, it really depends if you can find that payoff. I mean, so I actually have one right when I was saying it. I knew I was going to get this question or open this can of worms, because we see it so much right now. There's so many solar companies who opened up and really either went south or closed up shop without closing out, jobs. Or, I even have one never just put the lien on the homes and never touched the actual homes, and it's still owed. And this poor guy has it on 2 properties. So basically, when there's a defunct contractor, you really are going to have to find a title company or really a underwriter with really a sense of, figuring out how to get around things. So sometimes with defunct entities, you can, with a cash deal, you can remove an exception, you can leave it open, you can see if there's a case that you can be added to, but it definitely affects title. I have been seeing where lenders are allowing things to close, and I wouldn't say with defunct, if the solar lender is still in business, Oh, well, if the solar lender is still in business, I mean, my question is, I guess they closed and then moved entities basically, right? Is that kind of where you're getting at? Because really what you need, number one, is payoff or if that can be transferred. And then Christine has a follow-up
Yes,
question.
Brooke, in this case,
Yeah, tell me the background.
the lender is New Leaf and they do a lot of solar, but the actual contractor is out of business,
Gotcha.
which is
Oh, I
caused
see.
all kinds of grief with Duke and all of that information, but the lender's still there. We can get the payoff amount.
Okay.
So if that's all you need, then I'm bringing
Well,
it easier.
if it's just the contractor, and I mean, again, if the lender, you can get the payoff amount, then you're good. We can figure out a satisfaction. We can figure out ways around it on the next transaction. Your owner's policy should cover that. But I will close those. I have actually figured out how to lift, which not a lot of title companies know how to do, but how to lift those liens if the lender will allow it. Because sometimes these lenders, well, I mean, they always want to be first lien. So what we'll do sometimes is lift that lien, close the lender, and then put the lien back on the new owner and property. And what that does, it allows for the lender to be first lien holder. So we can do that too. And not a lot of title companies know how to do that, but I do. So that's a little bit different. Yeah. I figured it out. You know, you figure it out when you're growing in this time frame. You know, we have like so many great old school closers, but they never dealt with these newer items. But yeah, and then I have a good mix of both on my staff. But absolutely, and George, if you want to send that over, if you want to send me the commitment or anything you have, just feel free to. Even if it's not closing with me, I'm happy to walk you through it and help you pass along what instruction to give. Even for years, I was a consultant with these title companies around town, so a lot of them know me, and I can consult them and help them through it. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and then Christina, I think you had a question too. Did you still have it? So yeah, so that's just basic. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, can you hear me okay? Okay.
I can hear you.
Speaking of solar, let's say somebody is in litigation with a solar company and they're trying to sell. It's got to be complete before they can
Wait.
sell the property.
Say that again. Sorry, you did cut out in the middle. So you're
That's
you're
okay.
asking if something.
If
Yeah.
the seller had solar panels put on and they're suing the solar company, I'm assuming that's probably got to be resolved before they can sell the property. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, again, it really depends on the underwriter. It depends on how much of a, how much of a sense of humor the underwriter has, which isn't often. But you got to have a title agent that really knows what they're doing and is well versed. And I found ways around these things because and then it's covered on, you remove the exception and title, what that's saying, when you hear remove the exception, that means the title agent is taking on that responsibility. So I'm going to look at something and say,
Oh, okay.
is this going to come back and bite me? And that's what that's what I base my decisions on, is like a risk management standpoint.
Gotcha.
But yeah, a lot of times, Christina, yeah, they do have to be closed out. I mean, if we're being honest here, because solar is so tricky. And do you mind me asking what the suit is for? Are they trying to remove it?
I think the seller is just, there was some damages that were repaired. I guess there were some issues with, it not being turned on in a timely manner, and so I think a combination of not getting the actual service they were told they were going to be provided. Like there was some several months delay activating things on their end, and then some installation damage, which unfortunately we're seeing pretty commonly.
Yeah, and a lot of times they'll already have those hold harmlesses built into their contracts. So, but Yeah, but one thing that sticks out, and I've seen this before and I've done this before, where we do an escrow hold back on the payoff until something is resolved.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it kind of helps the seller to feel like they're in control, even if eventually it's still, the funds do have to go to pay that solar off or whatever it might be, but at least we can hold that until the case is resolved or settled, or a judge has made some sort of determination.
I'm kind of just fascinated in general because I'm just hearing so many of these cases where the solar companies are, like you said, their contracts are just protective of everything, and they're doing so many things wrong. They're not connecting it. They're damaging people's properties. They're lying to them when they pitch to the solar. I'm surprised how these things are standing up in court.
Yeah, there's, I'm not an attorney, but I work with, I have 4 that we have retained on at Apex, and I've seen so many cases on this lately, exactly what you said, whether damages, were done, and installation, different things like that. And it's just really sad because it takes the value away from the seller. And so going into it, again, you have to have a team around you that understand, these people are frustrated. This is their biggest purchase. And, a lot of times so much money has to go to these items being paid off because it's so difficult to get it approved by a lender, especially at certain price points. So yeah, whatever I can do to help you. Again, like I just said to George, if you want to send it over, feel free. I can just kind of tell you what we would do, see if it might be beneficial.
Thank you.
Okay, 10 minutes. I'll watch that, and then the next class we'll talk about it. I like that. What is it? 10 minutes. Okay, on Amazon. All right. So I knew when I mentioned solar, it was going to bring up some questions and some sore subjects that we've all seen. So then back to once we get lender funds in and all that, that's when we're balanced. That's what that word means, is we are match all of our figures line up with that title, with that lender, and title is now going to release those figures. So that's why a lot of times people want figures and it's 2 and 3 days before closing. I always have my girls do as much as they can up front. So if someone doesn't have figures for a buyer, that means that we're still waiting on the lender. That's really what that means. But we always, I try and work with people. I know people have jobs and different things like that. So I try to get it as close as I can. And if we have to pad it, have you guys have your buyers send them funds that are a little bit padded and cut them an overage check back. Because I do understand, I know I've worked with, over the years, several people. I can think of a night nurse this week that just couldn't get away from work. And so we worked with her on it. We padded it a little bit and she was able to go ahead and send in her wire. But that's what we're waiting on when we say balance. We're waiting on the lender to tell us what is owed to them. So then we can disperse appropriately. So that's when we release final figures to everybody. That's where we say, hey, can the realtors okay this? That's when we want you to double check your commissions, your brokerage fees, anything like that. Anything that might be structured in the deal, you want to take a look at, because that's where those final figures we're going to release, and that's what's going to be at closing and what's going to be signed. So you can still change it. There's still going back. If you spot a difference, you got to speak up. And then next would be receive lender docs. So a lot of times, this is why a lot of title companies won't schedule people to be signed. So even if you have on the contract, let's say it closes the 15th, and you're like, hey, let's go ahead and get the buyer scheduled. We'll do a tentative schedule, but we aren't going to send out, we aren't going to say it's definitely at this time. And we always say, and I'm sure you guys have seen it, when a client or a buyer is sitting there waiting for hours, waiting for a package and waiting. That's what we try to cut down at Apex because we know time is so valuable for you guys. So this is where we receive lender documents. We go through everything on our end. We get our post-closing started to be prepared, but that's where we say, okay, now we can get this buyer in here and get them signed. So that's what we're waiting on because, again, we have the title documents, but then we have that thick lender package. And then next, this is where we as title provide wire instructions to the buyer. We re-provide those just in case anything happened along the way. We want to make sure, you know, I always see people sending in wires based off their escrow wire instructions. I always say try and wait just because there's so much fraud going on. Try and wait until you receive those final figures and that title company will resend their wire instructions. And lastly, that's where we go ahead and schedule the signing. And then once that's in, we sign those docs and we get what's called funding approval. So a lot of people think everything's over, start passing the keys, popping the champagne, confetti, or whatever else is out there. Really, you shouldn't be doing that till you get funding approval. You do not want to pass keys along until all the funds are said to be okay. And so what that is saying is, number one, the lender wire has now gotten into the title company's bank account to then disperse. And number two, that means that the lender has everything they need. That means the seller signed because they're going to ask for that warranty deed, a copy of the warranty deed to be signed and sent over as proof of conveyance. Again, back to closing disclosures, mortgage note, any of those items, any affidavits, any disclosures, all those things that are required federally and by state, everything has been signed, sealed, delivered. And that's funding approval. That's what that's saying. And that means we can then set up our wires and disperse. So that's where you'll start seeing commissions go out and seller proceeds, items like that. And then all those little checks we have to send out. So that's when you actually start celebrating. And then again, funding, what funding entails and who gets paid. Back to what I said in the disbursement section is those city, county charges, recording fees, doc stamps, intangible taxes, payoff, mortgage, judgments, liens, third-party invoices, any association transfers, any brokerage commissions, realtor commissions, CDs, whatever's on your CD, or I'm sorry, your DA. And then seller proceeds and overages. So of course, this is something that I always want to instill in my agents when people are worried about, payoffs getting added or things like this. Again, nobody pays more than they're allowed or than they're supposed to or what's due. Title company cannot keep that as income. A good title company, we will always cut that over check back to your seller. If it's an extra recording fee, it doesn't matter if it's $2. We have to do that by law. Doesn't matter if it costs me more to mail out the check or send out the wire. I have to do that. So we always do overages. And then of course, FERPTA and holdback. So again, back to the solar panel issue, this is where if let's say there's a $5,000 or $10,000 holdback, we're going to have you sign what's called a escrow holdback form. And that's what's going to tell us what's held back. And we, by law, are supposed to hold those for 30 days. We can always extend those. And this is also where we set up wires. A good title company will have all their wires set up, ready to go just for that click of the button. But if they're waiting on, setting up wires, that can be a timely process. So really the title company should have them set up. And as soon as we get funding approval, you hit go, 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 go on all those wires. So that kind of sets us apart because it is an Apex SOP for us to go ahead and set that up while the signing is going on or beforehand. And then, of course, we mail out all checks, any homeowner's insurance, items like that. And then the boring stuff. So you guys don't ever see this side, but I did want to add this in here. just so you have time frame. I always see realtors not realizing time frames when it comes to policies or even warranty deeds or things getting recorded. So just a quick mention, Part C, which is all the stuff that you guys never see. You guys are out of the picture. You've gotten paid. Everyone's happy. Seller proceeds in the bank. Keys have been passed over. They're moving in. But what we have to do behind the scenes is what's called warehousing. And this is where we collect certified copies of anything that might be evidence of conveyance or mortgage of a new, or any evidence of a new lien, like a mortgage or note. And this is where we put together that lender package. We have to send originals back. So we send originals back to lenders. They have their own warehousing and department that they have to hold those items. So that should be done instantly. That is the next step when wires are being released. That's what we're doing behind the scenes, cutting checks and putting our warehousing package together. Anything like, you know, next, I guess, with cash transactions, we do not have to do that. So I do want to touch on this. If there's probate or different issues like that, that's why sometimes you can get away with a little more with cash transactions, because we can remove a lot more exceptions. That's where, you know, with lenders, we oftentimes have to go by what they allow for. Next will be recording. For recordings, we have documents that have to be entered into county records. This is what's going to tell you, you know, conveyance of title, affidavits sometimes get recorded, POAs or power of attorneys. I'll stop using acronyms. It's a bad habit. But mortgages, items like that. You want to make sure you have a title company that is doing this within, you know, 24 hours of that closing. I can think of one horror story where someone filed a lien or a judgment after docs were closed and everything was signed, sealed, delivered, funds were in, new buyers in the house, and they did not record on time. And guess what popped up in the next sale? A judgment. So you want to make sure you're using a title company that is recording that almost instantly after closing, because that's where it's going to be a title claim or not. So a title claim is then going to move forward and covering that as first lien, basically. But that's what your policy is protecting you against. So that's why we have it. But we try to work around that. And basically that's going to be recording on time and in a timely manner. This will take about 1 to 2 business days. So I always say instantly, but you get it accepted by the county. We do it via Simplifile, which is e-recording. That's what a little $9.50 fee that you'll see on every single settlement statement. That's what that is. We are sending it directly over to the county. About 99% of counties are now working with Simplifile. We used to have to mail these items in or send somebody to the courthouse or clerk of courts. End of day. That's how long I've been in title. I was the runner. But no, now we're lucky enough to put that online, submit it, takes a one to 2 day submission and acceptance. And then on top of that, you're going to see 1 to 10 day, depending on the county. Like Polk County is about 4 days. Osceola can be about 2 days. Orange County has less than 24-hour turnaround, but that's when you're going to see it online in the clerk of courts or property appraiser website. Okay, so it does take a little bit of time, but it should be done instantly. And then next will be policy remittances. After the fact, once we do our warehousing recording, we then have to have evidentiary support, which we call markups. So everything on that commitment, we're going to have to mark up and say we cleared, check, check, check. And put that all together with our commitment. We send that over to the underwriter. A lot of people don't know this step, but that is why it takes about 30 days to receive policies. And remittances, of course, paying the underwriter the 30% of the premium the client is paying for. So again, just to clarify, you have your owner's policy. That is what covers your seller and the conveyance of title. Okay. And then your lender's policy. That is what covers the lender's investment. So that's why they want to be first lien. That's why things like solar, you can lift those items or need to be paid off because they want to hold that mortgage as first payoff. That's why we have to clear everything. So just a quick little run back on that. And again, 30-day timeline on that policy. And then warranty deeds. I always hate when I see buyers and they're being charged $100 or $150 for their new warranty deed. It's right there. It's already in Orange County or whatever county they're in. It's already online, and always just reach out to the title company. We have that. We have it recorded. I hate seeing people pay money they don't have to. Other items, just to touch on really quick, some of the other stuff that we do. We all hear FERPTA. FERPTA holdback, that's for foreign sellers between 15 and 10%, or I'm sorry, 10 and 15%. This, by the way, a lot of people don't realize, if it is a homestead property, it can be waived under 300,000. Here we go. Here's a hand. All right. What was the question? I saw someone ask a question. I normally get FERPTA questions. Maybe not.
Kevin raised a hand and put it down.
Okay. All right. I always get a FERPTA question, so I was maybe anticipating it. But yeah, then 1099-S, this is our reporting. This is how we report the income of the sale or proceeds to the IRS. This is always signed at the closing tables and sent out annually. And then escrow disputes. I always want to touch on this because when we get an escrow dispute, a lot of people don't know the next step. So just really quick, when we receive notification that both parties are not going to sign that release and cancellation, we're going to do a 10-day, or a good title company will do what's called a 10-day cool-off period. And that is where it kind of lets people calm down. And hopefully by the end of that, they'll resolve it, because we then, by law, have to pass it to interpleader, and all those funds will be eaten up anyways by attorney costs. So just want to touch on that really quickly. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys for having me today. Of course, our most important job and what we are really good at Apex is going to be making you guys look good. I understand that title is the reason for you guys getting referrals. We are the last touch. So you have to have someone you can rely on. And hopefully that's me. So Kevin, what was your question? I still see it. Hand raised.
Yeah.
Oh, are you there?
Yeah, raise it again. So go ahead, Kevin. You're not on mute. We just can't hear him.
Yeah. You can always type it too.
Yeah, you can try that. He may be driving or something.
Yeah, or email, or it's an accident. But yeah, that's our main job, is making you guys look good.
Yeah, give your contact information, Brooke, in the chat, please.
You got it. Absolutely. But yeah, thank you guys so much for having me today. I really love what I do. I hope that I'm able to work with each of you. And, you know, again, my job is to make you guys look good. So you really should have a strong title agent or title rep. In my case, I'm both. I'm title agent, rep, and owner. So able to get those answers that you need and question, you know, figure out how we're going to get around things. But I really want to be that resource for you guys, and I'm happy to do whatever it takes to make you guys look good. So thank you so much, and I'll add my information back to you, Ryan. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming, and that was a very thorough presentation, and I think the people probably learned quite a bit. So
yeah,
good,
yeah, good.
And yeah, put your stuff in the chat, and thank you very much again.
Yeah, you got it. Of course, I can't copy and paste it, so excuse my slow typing.
You guys, no more questions for Brooke while she's typing? Tell us about your offices.
Oh yeah, so I just opened a new office over in Winter Garden. it's so adorable. You'll have to come by and see it. I'm going to have a grand opening. It's right by Plant Street. It's on Smith, backs up to Crooked Can. So we're going to probably all get into a little bit of trouble if you show up. We'll have a few drinks. But yeah, I have a Winter Garden location. I have an Orlando location, which is right off I-4 over by Millennia. And then I also have a Winter Haven. So we have 3 locations now. We have 4 really strong closers. Like I said, we're the fastest growing title company in Central Florida. These closers taught me everything. I'm so lucky to have them working with me. I've grown up alongside some of them, one of which has 32 years experience. She's the best in the city, I think. And our support staff was amazing. So I have a rule, no one touches a file unless they know how to work title through and through, start to finish, and have that experience. So we do make you guys look like superstars. But
Okay,
yeah.
Brooke, Kevin had a closing back in May, but the buyer still didn't receive the owner policy even till today. Is that normal process?
That shouldn't be normal. You really should be, if it's May, some title companies might be behind. A lot of times it could be caught in the mail. Those things do happen. I'd love to blame it on the title company, but sometimes when we're sending out those owners policies, we don't always have tracking on them. Sometimes I try and send them out FedEx. 2-day FedEx. But yeah, what I would do is reach back out, just double check. Different title companies have different policies. For me, I don't like leaving anything hanging for more than 30 days. The reason you might see a little bit longer lag time is because you don't get that till you pay remittances. Remittances don't have to be paid until 60 to 90 days. So some title companies get away with that if they're a little bit slow.
Excuse me.
And you'll see that a lot of title companies put so much emphasis on the front end because there's so much to be done, and then they get a little sloppy behind the scenes. So our title company, of course, doesn't do that. If you need help reaching out, let's see, I follow up a few emails. Title said pending. So it also could be that they closed it and something wasn't cleared. So if you want, Kevin, send that to me directly, and I can kind of help you navigate that and see what's going on, and get you the information for the underwriter, because the underwriter really should know that, or they'll have it. Okay, so I just put my email in the chat, so definitely reach out to me. That's a good question. All right. There you go. But yeah.
Thank you very much. I muted myself because I was coughing. Thank you very much, Brooke. Any other questions for Brooke before she goes? All right. Thank you very much, Brooke. We really appreciate it. You're awesome.
Of course, anytime.
Thanks very much. Okay, FRI people, what other questions do we have? I want to talk to Rita. Are you still here? Rita had a question because she had a
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. You're on the buyer side. I want to tell you this in person because we've been going back and forth on email. Rita's on the buyer side. She canceled in time. She has not heard back from the seller, was leaving town. The listing agent obviously has not signed her release and cancellation. I wanted to tell her, which I did tell her earlier by text or email, whatever it was, that you be careful not to, you are canceled if you send in your cancellation on time. Do not do any more rights or obligations under the contract. If you carry on, if you're worried about that, make sure they got your cancellation. I'm not sure if you're the same person. We had another cancellation where they had already negotiated a repair, and then they backed out. That was you, okay. And then they backed out, and so the seller was mad because you can't back out after you already negotiate something. Well, you can absolutely still back out during your inspection period for any reason whatsoever. So you're completely covered, but don't go scheduling anything else or whatever for this house, because if you continue to go on, then they'll have an argument that you didn't really cancel. You continue to go on with the contract. So you're still under contract. Do nothing. Move on with your life. They might have to wait to get their escrow back, but the seller has no. They have no winning case in this As long as as long as your buyer can move on and make another deposit if they need to or whatever with their life, they'll eventually get that money back.
Okay, I did send an email to the title company, just letting them know and attach the buyer's signature to it. And the seller's listed with Baycombe, I don't know how you say it, like a, where he doesn't really have representation.
Okay. Okay. Well, they still have to do it.
Yeah.
You might have to take them to small claims to get it back, but you're 100% in the right and you'll get it back.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
But I wanted to answer that in front of everybody, so everybody knows that. Make sure they don't have the same issues, you know.
Mhm.
All right, guys. With no other questions, we'll move on. I hope you guys got a lot out of that today. I thought it was a very good presentation. It was a lot longer than I thought, a lot more thorough than I thought, which was great. So I appreciate you guys all coming. Appreciate you listening. And if you guys need anything, let me know. Bye, everybody.